welcome to the members of the press and media, and also to my friends and colleagues. Welcome and thank you for being here this morning with us. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Michael Hall, who has arrived this morning all the way from the Rocky Mountains, Colorado in the USA. So traveling many hours, he's finally here. And this is his very first visit in Mauritius. So I'm excited about that. Are you excited about that?
Yes, I think so.
And I really invite you to meet with him and learn a little bit more about why he is in Mauritius. And the proceedings for this morning is, I will just start by sharing a little bit about how New Beginnings became involved and what we really want to do today. And then I will be passing on to Dr. Michael Hall, who I think I'll leave the two questions everybody asks me for him to answer, which is what is the meta-coaching system and what is neurosemantics? And he can answer that. And after that, I invite you all to ask some questions and participate. And that should take us until about 12 o'clock, where we can then have a cup of coffee and meet together and chat. On that note, I'd like to invite you all to just relax in an informal gathering. I know the setup looks quite formal, but I want to invite you to relax and make it informal and participate as much as you can and enjoy the experience of interesting conversations. I also have some special people amongst us, so part of the reason why Dr. Michael Hall is in Mauritius is to certify the very first meta-coaches, Mauritian meta-coaches. And part of that, we've asked some international team leaders to come and assist us. So we have some friends and colleagues of mine that have come all the way from the UK, from Norway, and from Cairo, and even from Brazil. So I'd like to welcome them all here as well, and thank you for giving up your special time on the beach to come and join us for our conversations. So thank you for that. And we also have some participants who are going to actually be going through, attending the Master Coaching Program, the 8-day boot camp, and they're also amongst you. So feel free to interview them if you want to anticipate or ask them what they are anticipating. And with that, so let's go on. New Beginnings in 2013 decided that we would invite Dr. Michael Hall to come and to certify the first meta-coaches in Mauritius. I was in Hong Kong doing my trainer's training and approached Dr. Michael Hall and said, please come to Mauritius. And the first question he asked me is, where is that?
Before that is, what is that? Then where?
And I'll never forget, I had my iPad because I thought he would ask me that. And it was on Google, enlarged of course, and I said, it's here. And he looked at me, he said, oh my goodness, it's in the middle of nowhere. And, and anyway, so from the New Beginnings came, and on the 20th of September, we had our first training where we had 23 participants, Mauritian participants, who attended Module 1. And from then, we started the program to have enough participants that would be ready so that we could bring Dr. Michael Hall to come and do the 8-day certification. Altogether, there have been over 180 Mauritians who've attended neurosemantics training since 2013. 88 have done both Module 1 and 2. And because this is an international program, it opens up then for any Mauritian to get certified anywhere in the world where Dr. Michael Hall has trainers like myself. And there will be 25 participants, Mauritian participants, who will then, from those 88, be certified by next week. So that's exciting news for us. And over to that, I leave you to pass on to you, Dr. Michael Hall. So what is coaching and what is neurosemantics? Such easy, simple questions.
Neurosemantics is about how you and I become excellent meaning makers. So we're meaning makers, because meaning, and this is the red pill question that I was asked about earlier, meaning doesn't exist out there. I've never walked down the street and found a hunk of meaning and said, who left that meaning there? So meaning is the process of a human being in their neurology, so neuro, making meaning, semantics, and it's what you and I do, we cannot not do. Everything you do, every performance that you perform is performed because it means something to you. What it means, I don't know. I'll have to ask you. What you're intending to do with that, I don't know. I'll have to ask. So you've got some meaning in that. And the meaning may be useful, may be practical, may be effective, may be enhancing, may be empowering, or may be limiting and sabotaging and toxic and pathological. So neurosemantics is about meaning and performance. So the meaning is the internal stuff of what we create and invent, and then the performance is how we manifest it through our neurology, our nervous systems, our physiology. And if this is a basic description of a human being, a meaning maker, and if the quality of the meaning is the quality of our lives, then the quality of your life could be no better than the quality of your meaning making. So what's the quality of any performance? It's the quality of the meaning. What's the quality of the meaning? The quality of the meaning is your ability to construct great meaning and to eliminate and deconstruct meanings that don't serve you well. So that's the elevator speech.
So I'm sure you've lost half of us by now.
Okay.
So if you think about in the meaning and the performance, which you very well described for us, how does it fit in terms of helping and unleashing other people? How does neurosemantics assist with that?
Well, if I was going to talk to you about that, I would ask you, what are you doing that you don't like doing?
Okay.
Are you procrastinating? Are you doing any self-attack, self-criticism? What are you doing that performance doesn't have the quality of meaning that you like and you want? What would you like to be doing that you're not doing in terms of leadership or relationship or health or fitness or delegating or 1,000 other human behaviors that you want to do? You see some people doing it, but you're not pulling it off. Something is stopping you from doing that with the quality and efficiency and effectiveness that you want. And whatever that is, we have to go back to meaning. And when we go back to meaning, we're talking about the frames of meaning, the frames of mind, the attitude that we bring to it. And so neurosemantics is the study of this experience, the structure of it, and how to enhance it, how to change it, how to eliminate it.
So with that, can you share with us how you put together the meta-coaching system?
So meta-coaching is using the neurosemantic tools for coaching, for facilitating someone to unleash their potential. So isn't the word potential great? Potential means it's not actual. Means it's in here, but not out there. Means that you have a sense of something clamoring inside, wanting to be unleashed, wanting to be released, having a sense of it's possible, but it's not happening, it's not real. So coaching is the process of finding those potentials, identifying them, first of all, developing them in terms of giving them great meanings, and then releasing them into the world so that it can become actual and not just potential. So the meta-coaching system is a system, a very systematic and systemic system, using 8 models by which we enable someone with just a conversation, just talking, the power of conversation, because our lives are lived and developed and changed one conversation at a time, to be able to facilitate that conversation is not an easy skill. And most people will stumble upon pieces of it from time to time. Very few people know how to do it systematically and in a structured way.
And the media coaching system provides
that. So ideally, when we have a well-trained meta coach, I could stop them at any moment and say, why are you doing that at this moment with that person to achieve what goal, and what are you going to do next, and how do you know to pull that off? That's what we call the systematic question. How do you know what to do, when to do it, with whom to do it, how to do it, and why do that at this moment in time?
Thank you for that. So, as I read in terms of a little bit of what you've been doing since 1992, can you perhaps tell us a little bit about modelling? Because I know that you're focusing on modelling, and a lot of your research and time has been in rediscovering Maslow's original modelling of self-actualizing women and men. And you've also modelled many coaches all over the world. Could you possibly explain to us what actually that means when you're modelling?
So modeling is a way to cheat.
Okay.
So instead of inventing it, we find someone who is doing a best practice of something. We find someone who is doing bits and pieces, or maybe a good deal, of something just excellent, something wonderful. Abraham Maslow said, if you want to ask the question and answer the question, how fast can a human being run? You don't get the average of everybody in the room and do a statistical means for this is how the average human being runs. You find the fastest. You find the ones who are the best at it. And that's the idea of modeling. Let's find the people who are best at leadership or delegating or exercising or being proactive, or whatever it is that we want to do. Let's find the best. Let's break it down into what are the component pieces, what are the variables, how do they relate to each other structurally, and if I was to replicate, to copy it, and to install it in someone else, how would I do that process? And that process is modeling.
And you chose Abraham Maslow's work to continue and model. So why was that?
Mostly because by going back and rereading his work, his work is a gold mine of nuggets, of jewels, of exciting pieces that are way before his time. We are just now getting to the place where a lot of his work is becoming relevant to us. Back in the 1930s, he talked about leadership as a functional and situational concept. The leader is the person who is best at doing whatever they're doing in that situation. It wasn't until 35 years later that Ken Blanchard developed situational leadership. So he was way before his time. And so finding that gold mine of Abraham Maslow was what I wanted to do to continue the work. I looked at how his work had continued through the ages and with the human potential movement and how the movement actually fell apart and then how it wasn't continued. And so we decided we would pick up where it had been left off, standing on his shoulders as giants that allow us to see further and to go further.
So what I read from that is you began that, but before that you had a therapy practice, is that right? So how did that influence
I'm feeling much
you?
better now. all the practice I was doing with others.
So how did you decide to, or what made you shift from that into going into the modelling?
Well, that was my discovery of NLP. P&L in this country. I was doing therapeutic work, got some diplomas and degrees in clinical counseling, was doing that, and thought it was just extremely slow and laborious and ineffective for most people, And the statistics in the late 70s and 80s was that therapy did not have a good track record of being effective. So when someone told me that they could cure phobia in one session, I knew that this person had been taking some drug, because it'd be like saying I can fly to the moon. And when I found out what he was referring to, and then ran that pattern with someone, I had a client who said to me, "Isn't there any faster way?" Now I knew how to do progressive muscle relaxation, which I was doing with him, and getting a hierarchy of fears and doing the exposure to his hierarchy of fears. We hadn't got anywhere near his big fears, just his little ones. And he said, "Isn't there a faster way?" And I said, "Well, I've been reading this crazy stuff in this book. I don't think it works. I don't understand how it could work." And he said, "Well, just read it to me." And I literally got out the book, Frogs and the Princess, read it to him, read the last line. "Oh, okay, now try to have the phobia." And when he couldn't, my jaw dropped down. And I said, "Come on now, don't fool with me. You're my client now, tell me the truth." And when he could not replicate that phobia, I knew that what this material that was looking at it from a structural standpoint, there was some real magic, some real genius in it, and I wanted to find out where this came from and what else is there. And that was my 1986 experience that sent me into the field of NLP.
And then from that, you began trainings in meta states as well, and you also did some modeling on resilience, and that's where you articulated the meta states model. So how did you come by that?
Well, once I recognized that every experience has a structure, then Richard Bandler, who I worked with for 4 years, really recommended that I would do a thorough modeling project of something. So I picked resilience because I wanted to know, why is it that when some people get knocked down, they just stay down? Or it takes them forever to come back, and when they come back, they're not fully back. They're still carrying the pain, the distress, and the frustration of whatever knocked them down. Could have been a health crisis, could have been a divorce, could have been bankruptcy, but they got knocked down. And then some people, you knock them down, they just bounce right back just immediately. And I wanted to know what's the difference. And I wanted to have that difference. I wanted to have that bounce, so that when something doesn't go my way and I get knocked down, set back, I'm back. And you're not going to stop the vision. So I did took 4 years to just start studying resilience. There wasn't a lot written about that in 1989, 90, 91. So I started asking people the question, who has been to hell emotionally, mentally, relationally, financially? Who's been to hell? And you're back.
Wow.
And you don't have hell as part of your lifestyle. You're back. You're fresh, you're clean. So as I started interviewing these people who had been back, and who, at first I didn't make the time element, because I started interviewing people, it took them 7 years. It's like, I don't want to wait, I don't want to have a 7-year strategy. I want to have a quick strategy, that, in fact, eventually I found people who were not traumatizable. In fact, the person that everybody in this room knows like that was Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was sent to one of Hitler's camps, and if you read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, it was like he was set back, but only on the outside. On the inside, he didn't get traumatized. How is that possible? How is that possible not to read it as, this is the worst thing in the world that could happen to me? And when he came out, even though his wife was dead, his mother was dead, his sister was dead, his father was dead, even though so much had been taken away from him, he lived until he was in his 90s as a person just contributing, giving, creating. How is that possible? So that was the subject of resilience, and And out of that came the metastates model, because resilience is not a simple state. Just think about being resilient, step in there, be there. It involves many components, and it involves components that's holding all of those components. And so it involves a state that holds all these states in places. It involves a metastate. And by articulating that distinction, we now can model really complex states, like resilience, like courage, like self-esteem, like forgiveness, like seeing opportunities, like seizing opportunities, the richest, most complex states that you can't just step in there. So states that support health and fitness, states that support ongoing leadership, states that support creating wealth over a period of time.
So it sounds like when you have to model somebody, you really got to research them well, because it's not just about what they do, but it's about all their
Exactly.
frames. So that must have taken you a long time to do all the research and the actual modeling work. So which probably leaves me to ask, I'm going to do my last question, because I didn't realize I had to ask you a question. I thought you were just going to volunteer information. So you really made my job hard for me. So I had to quickly think. So before I hand you over for anybody else, because I'm sure that there's a lot of questions here that people would like to ask you. Amongst all this research and modelling that you've done, and the models that you've developed, as well as the meta-coaching system and the training, you've also written, oh my goodness, so many books, which I've read many and still plan to read many more. How do you fit all of that?
Well, once again, knowing structure, so the secret of writing is writing every day. So I write 30 minutes every day. So then it's not a big deal to turn out a couple books a year, or to write a number of articles. I write 3 articles every week. So I write every day. I plan it, so I know where I'm going with it, and not just, I used to have writer's block. That was until 1994, when, using the metastates model, I set up what we call the flow state, the genius state. So when I step into the state, I'm there, ready to go. And don't have to sit around waiting, feeling blocked with writer's block. And so there's a structure to effective writing, and so putting that together.
I don't know if writer's block is all, because I often know what I want to say and what I want to write, but it'll still take me probably an hour to write one newsletter. So I think, how long would it take me to have to model you on writing books? Probably longer than it will take me before I write a book. I suppose, is there any questions? Anyone that wants to ask Michael, here's your opportunity to ask any questions.
What is the relationship between psychology and neurosemantics?
The relationship between psychology and neurosemantics. Psychology is such a wide field, the study of the psyche, and so there's so many schools of psychology. And the schools have, over the last 2 centuries, focused on different facets of the psyche. Some have focused on behavior, so they have behaviorism. Some have focused on what's outside of conscious awareness, and so Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis has focused primarily on the unconscious. Cognitive psychology, that was developed in the 1950s, has focused on thinking and consciousness. And so the different psychologies have focused on different facets of the human being. So psychology is a study of how do we function, what drives us, and so forth. The psychology of humanism, humanistic psychology, or self-actualization psychology, began with Abraham Maslow in the 1930s, asking, we've studied these facets of the human being to find out all the things that go wrong. Psychology emerged in the late 1880s because medicine, it was obvious medicine couldn't solve some of the things like hysteria, multiple personality, or schizophrenia that something else was going on other than just the physiology. So Sigmund Freud, a medical doctor, started looking at what else could there be. So the first 50 years of psychology was studying the dark side. Abraham Maslow said if there's that dark side of how it can go wrong, how it can go tremendously, pathologically wrong, is there a bright side of how it could go so well? It could go more well than just average, just normal. So we had abnormal psychology, and Abraham Maslow wrote a book called Abnormal Psychology, 630 pages on like a Bible on all the ways people can get messed up. And in that book, he kept saying, I wonder if there's a bright side. I wonder if there's a healthy side. So we got abnormal psychology, you got normal psychology, what's the norm? And then self-actualization psychology is, what is the supernorm? What would be the outliers? The extreme places of what is possible, potential for human beings. So when we think about psychology, is it therapeutic psychology? Is it normal psychology? God help us. Or is it what is possible, the areas of excellence? And that's what neurosemantics mainly focuses on. We can't, knowing what's possible allows us to help people to norm out and to get out of that. But meta-coaching really focuses upon the potential of psychology. So we base a lot on psychology. Meta-coaching and neurosemantics is based upon cognitive psychology, that's NLP, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, getting to the norms, and how over the lifespan we become healthy, and self-actualization psychology. So those are the three primary psychologies that neurosemantics is based on.
I'm Bruno. I'm going to be in the ACMC as from Thursday. In fact, I've got two questions. First one is on, I saw you just wrote a book on political coaching, and I'm part of an organization, Women in Politics, where we encourage more women to be in politics. So what can you say about political coaching? And I read somewhere on a blog that you mentioned that politicians out there maybe are not so too, I would say, well prepared to do politics.
So it's interesting that in the last 50 years, leaders in business have been learning to move from the old command and control leadership, military leadership. Because in business, if you command people and they don't like it and they leave, you're not going to, where's all your followers? So they've been learning to adjust, to stop the command and control and learn to bring out the best in people. And so in business, that's been happening. In politics, the leaders of politics seem not to have learned that one yet. And so what's holding them back? There's four big things that seduce people in leadership. Power is one. And we've got old quotations like from Lord Acton, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Money corrupts, and absolute money tends to corrupt absolutely. So in the United States, we keep having some of our politicians. We had one guy 3 years ago, the FBI went to his house and opened up his refrigerator, found $100,000 cold cash in his refrigerator, and he couldn't explain where it came from or how he got it or why it's in his freezer. He's now in jail. So money corrupts. With power and money, then fame corrupts. To be recognized, to be loved, to be honored, to be worshipped. It seems to corrupt people. And then sex. I did not have sex with that woman. Except I did. But that came 8 months later. So we got these facets that tend to facilitate corruption. And it happens everywhere. It happens in every country and everywhere. And so so the question I started asking myself is, has there, just like we have in business, we've got some self-actualizing leaders who care more about the people that they're serving and the business that they're serving than themselves and their power and their fame and their money and their sex. Could we have a self-actualizing political leader? And then looking around the world, there was obviously, we've had one in this century, Nelson Mandela. Last century, we had Abraham Lincoln, who really put, at the expense of himself, put his country before, and his principles, his vision of equality before himself. And then we've had people who didn't hold office, like Gandhi, like Martin Luther King. So there have been, it is possible for a human being to step into that kind of a leadership role and provide a much higher quality of leadership in politics. So why isn't it happening? We've got some great examples, so why isn't it happening? What's holding it back? And so that was the question I wanted to explore. And what do we need to do? What do we, everyday average people, need to do so that the old saying won't be true of us? We get the leadership that we deserve. So what do we need to do politically? Well, even the word politics seems dirty to some people. So one of our politicians the other day was on TV, and he was a businessman who had to put his new profession, and he just said, I can't put the word politician. I can't write it. So even the word actually from polis, Greek, city, polis is just how you run the city, how you run the community, how we get along with each other, how we collectively learn, make decisions, allocate resources, treat each other. Politics is just how we treat each other. So given that, then all that we know about these soft skills should have a big effect on how we treat each other, whether it's a town or a city or a country. And so that's what the whole book is about. How do we move to having healthier politics? And cleaning up this word so that we want people of good character wanting to become a politician and not feeling ashamed of the word.
There's a lot of work to be done on that.
A lot of work to be done on that one.
Why is there that craziness around the word coaching? Everyone to be coached in the industry, enterprises, the CEOs, the politicians now.
Yeah.
Do you have an explanation, a meaning, an explanation for that craziness about everyone wants to be coached?
Well, when coaching came into awareness around 1990, and then Thomas Leonard was the first person really to organize coaching as a movement. And he started Coach Youth and later Coach Ville. And Thomas Leonard leading out in that field of coaching. At first, in the 1990s, coaching was a fad. It was a fad. Everybody, this was the new fad. Instead of consulting, instead of training, we're going to do coaching. And because it was not managed, it was not controlled, it was not, there was no standards for it, there was no philosophy for it, there was no structure to it, then everybody and their cousin became a coach. Once we got to the 2000s and coaching started to become a methodology, and it now was not just a fad, it had entered into organizations, and organizations were using it as a tool for management. And the reason is because with the speed of change today, who can keep up? Who can keep up in any field? And what coaching began to do was to provide a way for accelerated adult learning. So instead of saying to a manager, let me send you back to the university, take a course in this or that, and then 12 weeks later you come back, we'll give you a coach so that you can do on-the-job learning, and you got someone who's facilitating you and enabling you to take those learnings, incorporate them. Because one of the problems of a lot of universities is we get a lot of head knowledge and we can't do. And so coaching became a way to coach the person to do what they know. And so a lot of the coaching programs of the 1990s started falling away, becoming redundant, because they could not translate from mind into neurology, into muscle memory. And so managers started having coaches. In the United States, how coaching became popular was with Bill Clinton's I did not have sex with a woman. That was, I don't remember the year, 1998, something like that. And in August of that year, Bill Clinton invited Tony Robbins to Camp David for 3 days. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall. I don't know what happened, but I know 3 days later, August 9th, and the only reason I remember that because it's my brother's birthday, on August 9th, Bill Clinton had a press conference. Okay, I did have sex with that woman. So Tony Robbins coached him, and at the end of that month, all the magazines, all the newspapers, President Clinton has a personal coach. September of that year, Cosmopolitan magazine, Hillary Clinton's on the front cover. The First Lady has a personal coach. Now everybody and his cousin, well, when am I going to get my personal coach? And so it became popular to have and then the idea was amplified with the name of the golf expert, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods decided to change his hitting thing, and so he got a new coach. He got a couple new coaches to help him change his hitting, and so that amplified the whole idea of coaching as an accelerated adult learning process, at least in the United States, and it spread around. And so that's why this craziness. Part of the craziness is that there are some celebrity coaches, like Marshall Goldsmith, who can call forth $10,000 for a coaching session. Well, what do I need to do to be a coach? $10,000. So while a lot of counselors are still struggling at $50 an hour, coaches in that same community are getting $400 an hour. So this is the craziness. It's driven by a lot of the money. But also the craziness is that because we still do not have an international certifying body to identify what are the skills, what are the competencies, and managing that. It's coming, but it's not here yet. People want to jump in and be a coach. So that's some of the craziness of it.
I'm going back in American politics. We are in the run for 2016. A lot of coaches are working, namely between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Maybe Bush, they are working with them.
So are you asking, there's a lot of coaches working with politicians? For the most part, I would say no. With our model of meta-coaching, we've got probably 24 coaches around the world working at the city council level. So Joseph Scott in Australia has worked with several city councils in Melbourne and Sydney at the city council level, helping them communicate better, conflict resolution better, make decisions, do collective learning, collective decision making better. We've got a few people who are working at a little bit higher level, working with mayors of cities. We've got a couple working with some representatives at a state level. But for the most part, above that, if people are having coaches, they're keeping it really secret. Now there may be, but it's just not known. And my guess is there's probably not many. And if they're doing it, it would be something like maybe a coach for presentation skills, a coach for better negotiation skills. But very, very little would be for personal development. But hopefully that'll be coming.
Can we talk about a new corporate environment that is changing and how what you are doing in meta coaching and new methods, how is it helping?
Well, the nature of corporations is changing, and the speed of change, how a whole industry can be made redundant in weeks anymore. A whole industry can just be eliminated by the development, the innovation that's going on around the world. So that puts a big pressure and a lot of stress upon the people at the top. Where are we taking this company? Where are we going? And what are the factors that could undermine us and we lose our place in the market or lose the market entirely? So coaching becomes a useful thing for them to be stepping aside and thinking about that and doing long-term planning. It has to do with their vision, their values, their character, their leadership skills. In most corporations still, if there's 8 people on the board, if you pull those 8 people out separately and ask them, what's the vision of this company, you'd probably get 8 visions. If you pulled out the executive group from the managerial group and asked them, what do you think of the other group and how much communication, how much interaction is going on, it's probably very little. So we don't have a leadership team. And so that's why group and team coaching is becoming, and I think will become, a big trend in the next 2 or 3 decades. Because if we're not working as a team, so one of the diseases of most corporations is the silo mentality, and how that people from different departments treat each other as competitors and enemies. I'm going to get bigger part of the budget than you, and I'm going to get the best people in this team better than. So the companies are having this internal conflict, and therefore the need for coaching in that corporate level. The other thing is, one of the other diseases of corporations, especially the really big ones, is that when it comes time for succession and we need a new CEO, let's go over there, and we bring people in who don't know the culture, don't know the system, don't know the history. First thing they want to do, let's throw all this new stuff out and bring in all this next new stuff. And so the new stuff that was there isn't even given a chance to work, because I need to make my impression. So what GE did many years ago, they created a leadership pipeline inside the company to do homegrown leadership. And so the best companies now know that that the best way is to do homegrown leadership development grooming from inside, rather than going and getting charismatic leaders from outside. So there's so many toxic and unuseful things that's going on in corporates that need to be changing, and the best companies are doing that, and a lot of the other ones are just locked in status quo, and it wasn't invented here mentality. And so all of that becomes stuff for coaching. As well as in terms of communication, we now know that the richest quality, the capital of most organizations is no longer the bank account or the buildings or the machines. The capital now is people. And Bill Gates said this about Microsoft. He said, when I think about my company, I think that at 6 o'clock in the evening, our capital is walking out that door. And the big question is, will that capital walk back in tomorrow? Because it's creative capital, it's personal capital, it's intellectual capital. And so I want to keep that capital coming back because it's fluid. And so if leaders don't think that way, then their best people could be leaving. We started taking meta-coaching to China a number of years ago, and the very first time we did meta-coaching in China was in Guangzhou. We had 97 people coming to the session for meta-coach, and those 97 people, 99% of them, so 96 of them, were managers in organizations. And I said, how many here want to be a coach and have a private practice? And one person raised their hand out of 97. I said, well, who are the rest of you? What are you doing here? Well, most of them had been sent there, and we had 5 CEOs. Most of them sent by their CEOs because they were told, we're losing too many of our good people. And it was a new phenomenon there in Guangzhou, China. It was a new phenomenon. Now the people had choice. Well, I don't like how this manager is treating me, so I'm going to go to that factory. I had one young man, he's 32 years old, raise his hand one time, and he said, how can we make our factories and our organizations more effective? And I said, treat the people well. And he said, you're kidding. And I said, what do you think would be the joke? He said, well, that's going to take a lot of time and trouble to know all these people and treat them well. And I go, yes. I said, have you had some of your best people leave? He said, well, yeah. And did you do an exit interview to find out why? He said, well, no. So that whole area is waking up to the fact that if we don't treat people well, we're not, because our people are, we've said this as a little saying, our people are our best resource. It's now become true in a literal way.
So maybe Sandra, you can talk about the team coaching seminar.
Yes, so we're going to, we've basically reached time as well, so from here we invite you to have a cup of coffee. And just to let you know, we have prepared for the press and the media, we've prepared a press pack for you, and we've included 2 of the workshops that we will be doing as open to the public workshops. The first one is with the Indian Ocean Coaching Association. So Bruno is the Vice President today, representing the Indian Ocean Coaching Association, and we're going to be, Dr. Hall is going to facilitate a workshop, a half-day workshop on team coaching, and that's on Saturday the 19th. And then on the Monday the 21st, we're going to have a business workshop for all the leaders in business and even politicians, we hope, to come and listen to Dr. Michael Hall in Unleashing Leadership. So those are the 2 events that we're going to have after the training. So please do share it with anyone that you think will be interested in attending. And Georgina will hand out all the press packs for you. So Georgina, just make sure that you have, because I think Jason did do some extra copies on that. So, should we have a cup of coffee? And please feel